Most of the videos on procrastination tells us that procrastination is the root cause. Well, let me tell you, it is not the fact. The root cause is actually the dopamine culture, which leads to procrastination as the byproduct. And we need to solve for dopamine culture in order to navigate procrastination. That's what we are going to unfold in this new episode, backed with perspectives, backed with practices, and backed with neuroscience. A renowned researcher, Dr. Joseph Ferrari, states in his research that about 20% of the world's population goes through chronic procrastination. My intent with this video and submission to you all is to help you serve knowledge, skill set, and mindset that will help you to not be in that 20%. On that note, let's begin. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about an aspect that is procrastination, which everyone is hit on a day-to-day basis. However, I'm not going to talk about the generic aspects of procrastination because there are quite a few videos out there on YouTube. By the way, if you are not aware about dopamine culture, which actually is the root cause for procrastination, do not miss my previous episode. In fact, go watch that episode first and then come back to this episode, because that's when you will be able to make some stronger connections and leave away with some concrete practices to not be there in that 20% of population which goes through chronic procrastination. Part 1. Let's start with the basics. What is dopamine? Well, dopamine is your brain's feel-good neurotransmitter. When you check your phone and you get a new like, you get a new notification, your feed refreshes, there is a sense of anticipation which is triggered by dopamine, and it gives you a short-term feel-good factor. In short, dopamine is your brain's reward system that governs your motivation, your pleasure, your anticipation, and immediate reward-seeking behaviors. Let's understand how dopamine fuels procrastination, how it is actually the root cause for procrastination, and procrastination is not actually the problem. It is actually a result of a problem. Procrastination stems from our brain's tendency to seek immediate gratification, those short-term pleasures, which is driven by dopamine. And this is where we will have to understand how technology plays a key role in triggering that dopamine, and in fact that dopamine overload. Something that I spoke about in my previous video. It's no secret that our phones, the internet, the way they are designed, they are intended to keep us hooked. This overstimulation makes everyday tasks seem boring because they don't provide the same quick rewards, those quick pleasures, or those triggers of anticipation. Now imagine how we are really surrounded with rampant triggers of dopamine. Ever wondered why we procrastinate even though we know that there is a deadline? The reason lies in how dopamine actuates us to seek quick rewards, to seek quick pleasures. When faced with tough tasks, your brain would rather get a quick hit of something else or from something else that is easy, like checking Instagram, watching something where you are very passive, than focusing on something that is really difficult and would demand effort and intent from you. This phenomenon leads to something that is called as delayed discounting, which is a fancy way of saying we'd rather have a small reward now than a big reward later. This is the direct link of dopamine culture that we live in that leads to the cause of procrastination. That's what a lot of people miss to understand and end up solving for procrastination, whereas what we really need to solve is the dopamine culture that we are in, the solution part. The solution may sound simple, but trust me, it requires effort. That's the caveat. The solution is dopamine detox. Now, wait a second. I'm not saying that you got to remove the dopamine from your life completely. That's practically not possible. But what I'm suggesting and submitting to you all is to make an effort to reduce the influence off dopamine from your lives. It's more like how you would reboot your system. We need to reboot our brain from seeking quick pleasures, quick motivations, triggers of anticipation to a longer term pleasure, to a longer term reward system. And therefore, rewiring our brain or nervous system with such a detox is important, where we focus on long-term activities rather than short-term pleasure or anticipatory engagements. How do you actually start a dopamine detox? Here are a few strategies or examples that actually I have practiced and that has helped me in many ways. Well, this journey on YouTube is a result of being able to do these practices. Number 1, tech-free mornings. Avoid your phone for the first 1 to 2 hours of the day. Instead, focus on something that stimulates your brain in a slower, more meaningful way, like reading, meditating, journaling, or exercising. Number 2, engage in deep work. Set aside chunks of time to work on challenging tasks without distractions. You will notice that the more you practice this, the more satisfying the work becomes. Number 3, limit digital consumption. Try limiting social media usage to certain hours of the day. I'm not saying don't be passive about it. Do it. Do it for your entertainment. Even though it's debatable, I don't think it helps us to relax. But if you think so, you can do it. But try and do it for a short period of time and not consistently. Break down big tasks into smaller steps and reward yourself after completing each one. At the end of the day, we all struggle with procrastination. But by understanding the role of dopamine culture into our lives and the decision-making process, we can start taking back control of our own lives. Remember, it's not about eliminating dopamine. It's about increasing your brain's ability to get attuned to a long-term reward system, pleasure and motivation versus short-term, short-shelved, immediate gratification. So I challenge you today to try and do the dopamine detox. If it works for you, fantastic. If it doesn't, you can treat it as an experiment, right? But trust me, you got to focus on the dopamine culture to eradicate or navigate procrastination from your lives. If this episode got you thinking, then do like it, share it with as many as possible, and do drop in a comment sharing your learnings or experiences or your feedback. Keep unfolding, keep on learning, and keep growing. And before we leave, don't miss to subscribe the channel, hit the bell icon, and support Unfoldlearning Podcast. This is your host, Kaustav. Thank you for being there. Till then, take care of yourself and people around you.